I once heard a sentence that stopped me in the middle of an ordinary day. It did not come with drama or warning. It was said calmly, almost gently, but it felt heavy in the air. The words were simple. This is your final breath. In that moment, time did not freeze, but something inside me did. The world kept moving, cars passed, people talked, and life went on, but I stood there feeling as if I had stepped outside my own life and was looking back in. I did not believe the words at first. They sounded impossible, like a line from a movie or a strange joke. I was healthy, busy, and always in a hurry. Final breaths were for other people, for old age, for accidents on the news. Not for me, not today. But the sentence stayed with me. It followed me home, sat beside me at dinner, and whispered to me in the quiet of the night. That evening, I lay in bed listening to my breathing. In and out. Slow. Steady. I had never paid attention to it before. Breathing was something my body did without asking. Now every breath felt like a gift I had been careless with. I thought about how many times I had rushed through my days, always planning the next thing, never fully inside the moment I was living. The next morning, the world looked the same, but it felt different. The light through the window seemed softer. The sound of birds felt louder. I noticed small things I usually ignored, like the warmth of the cup in my hands and the quiet comfort of familiar rooms. I realized how often I lived as if life were endless, as if there would always be time later. On my way to work, I passed a man selling flowers on the corner. I had walked past him hundreds of times without stopping. That day, I slowed down. I looked at his face, the way he carefully arranged each flower, the patience in his hands. I bought one, even though I did not know why. As I walked away, holding something bright and alive, I felt a strange sense of gratitude, as if the day had given me a small gift just for noticing it. At work, I listened differently. When people spoke, I did not rush to respond. I heard the tiredness in their voices, the hope, the quiet worries hidden between words. I realized how often I had been present only with my body, not with my attention. The thought of a final breath made every conversation feel more important, more fragile. That afternoon, I called someone I had not spoken to in a long time. There had been no big fight between us, just silence that grew slowly over the years. We were both busy. We both assumed there would be time later. When they answered, there was surprise in their voice, then warmth. We talked about small things at first, and then about deeper ones. When we said goodbye, I felt lighter, as if I had released something I had been carrying without knowing it. As days passed, the sentence did not leave me, but it softened. It no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a reminder. I started to see how often fear controlled my choices. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Fear of change. But when I imagined a final breath, those fears seemed smaller. What mattered was not being perfect, but being honest. Not being admired, but being kind. One evening, I sat with my parents at the table, listening to stories I had heard many times before. Usually, my mind would wander. This time, I stayed. I watched their faces as they spoke, the way their expressions changed with memory. I realized that these moments were not ordinary at all. They were fragile, unrepeatable. I did not know how many more times we would sit like this. The thought did not make me sad. It made me present. I also began to notice my own body in a new way. When I felt tired, I rested without guilt. When I felt joy, I let it stay instead of rushing past it. I learned that living fully did not mean doing more. It meant feeling more, allowing myself to be where I was without wishing to be somewhere else. There were still hard days. The reminder of a final breath did not erase stress or pain. But it changed how I carried them. When something went wrong, I asked myself if it would matter at the end of my life. Sometimes the answer was yes, and I faced it with care. Often the answer was no, and I let it go. One quiet night, I stepped outside and looked at the sky. The stars felt distant and calm, unchanged by my worries. I took a deep breath and felt the cool air fill my lungs. I understood then that the sentence I had heard was not about death. It was about life. About the space between breaths. About the moments we are given and how easily we forget their value. I do not know when my final breath will come. None of us do. But I know this now. Each breath before it matters. Each word spoken with kindness matters. Each moment of attention matters. The sentence that once frightened me became the reason I started living more gently, more honestly, and more awake. Sometimes, when the days feel heavy again, I return to that simple rhythm. In and out. I remind myself that life is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is here, in this breath, and then the next one. And that has changed everything.